Shelley, if you'd go ahead and introduce yourself, and if you could explain your relationship to Little London Winds.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Radin. I'm the president of the Little London Winds for a long time.
Great. Thank you. Roy?
Roy Cheney, Deputy City Administrator. And tonight we just want to talk about the Soda Springs Park parking. Of course, has a long tradition of having parking there behind the stage and the pavilion. And with some of the numbers we determined with organizers, up to 40 cars used to park behind there. So for about 29 years, Little London Winds has parked there. Probably than others have parked there at a longer period of time. And just for the record, I did check with the Manitou Springs Police Department. There haven't been any accidents or injuries there as far as they can tell. Since they've looked at the records, they looked and they couldn't find anything. So we do know, and I know that council wanted us to look at eliminating that parking or reducing it for safety reasons. And we did that with last year, because of the conflict with that at the time, with already events organized, we ended up doing a agreement with groups so that they would have someone monitor traffic in that parking lot. They had to have someone watching the cars, directing them, and watch for children and other things. No, with groups. Yes, with the groups utilizing it, sorry. And so they signed this agreement that they would have someone watching for the vehicles, and they would help them park their vehicles and watch for children and watch, for safety reasons. And it worked really well this past at the end of the year. But starting in 2025, we were looking at not having the cars parked there, and it has raised some concerns. So I talked to Shelley here. We had a conversation on some of those challenges. And at the end of the day, it became a challenge for performers. And so I just want to talk a little bit about the benefits of parking behind there. It's a convenience to the performers, obviously, with loading and unloading their equipment, especially with musical instruments, not always the lightest things. And carrying those is always something a lot of places do to try to give the performers good access to the stage. It reduces the need to carry them for safety reasons to a distance along walking, especially at night going back, and along with also music stands and things like that. And it improves efficiency if they don't have to come, if they have to park a distance away or even drop it off and try to come out of that parking area. They have to come earlier to town to do that. So we're bringing more traffic into the city earlier. So there's some efficiencies there if we can allow them to use that area. The proposed temporary measures in 2025 and possibly 26 would be that we continue that plan. We up at least 20 cars. There's going to be a question here, can we still do the 30 or 40? With the person on the ground watching it, I think it definitely is a possibility to do it safely still for the next year or two until we have other solutions for parking. Because if we don't handle the parking there, we're pushing the parking elsewhere. And those 20 or 40 cars will park somewhere else on the street, which means people coming to the concert are going to have to find places to park. And so we're just going to create more by taking away at this time. I believe we want to continue supporting groups such as Little London Winds that are supported by the city and the community, as long as they follow our parameters and regulations. Of course, we got to consider the long-term vision on what we want to do out there. And I know that Parab is working on a master plan with the Parks and Rec Department. And I think that's definitely where, council does have to give all that input on what they want to see. And that's for the future. I believe they're going to start construction maybe in 26. So we have 1 year, possibly a second year. We have to consider how we're going to manage the parking. And then do we continue and make a parking spot there? I do know that Parab has they support this program for this next year and even 26 if we needed to for the 20 cars at least. And then they also want to discuss more about maybe providing some parking there in the future when they do the renovations. So the pros again is that we're supporting the community events that I think the community wants. Cultural programs such as this, it aligns with the city goals. And this is a practical interim solution for the parking area for now. And if we find other solutions, for example, Hiawatha opens and somehow we can do trams and we can, if we have some way to get them over there, maybe we can find another solution in the future. If we only do 20, we will still need to pull, I think, Shelley told me 14 more cars to park, 24 more cars to park. So, but that would be better than, currently if we only do the 10 or we remove it entirely. So that's the only con I see at this point, because safety has been proven that we're able to maintain that safety aspect there. It's just the additional oversight we might need to watch for that, but I think we already need that. I think that's not changed. If we pull them out on the street and have to give them parking on the street, we're going to have to maintain that as well. So I really think there's not too many cons associated with that 1 more year or up to 2 years of allowing parking. So at this time, I'll let Shelley talk about the London Winds and how it affects them. And
Except you said everything I was going to say. So thank you. Thank you, Roy. We are a concert band, as Roy said. We've been playing in Soda Springs Park for about 29 years. I was at the first concert years ago. Didn't think it was going to last that long, but it's been great. We play every Monday night in the summer. There are 9 concerts. They're free. The audience ranges from 200 to 600 people, depending on the weather and other events. 4th of July, there's typically a much bigger crowd. So lots of folks come. They bring their own chairs these days, of course. Nobody's complaining about that. So for 29 years, we've been parking behind the pavilion on the dirt there. And we're very sensitive to the way the cars are parked because we want to try to fit as many cars in there as possible. So we typically have somebody back there making sure people are parking as efficiently as possible. And to do that, people driving are not pulling it in any more than a few miles an hour, maybe 2 or 3, because you can't go any faster. So we've never had an incident back there. We pack the cars in there. We park like sardines. And it's been very successful. Of the people who are playing with us, some are still working. Some are retired, like myself, but some are still working, and they show up at the last minute because of work or traffic, and they need to be able to park very quickly, get their instrument out, get the music stand out, get the music stand light, get the music itself out, which is a big folder, and other accoutrements like we have a sound system we bring a podium. We have a trailer for a lot of percussion equipment. So they need to be able to park quickly and sit down and play. We start at 7 o'clock every Monday. We play for about an hour and a quarter. Is there anything else I can add? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. About how long does it take for everyone to unload?
How long to do what?
Unload.
Unload? Well, it's over a period of about an hour. Different people unload different things as they get there. The percussion takes about a half an hour, but that's a crew of percussionists unloading a trailer and setting their stuff up, and the rest of us usually don't touch their things. But everybody else has got their own instruments to unload, and depending on when they come. So sometimes it's one trip from the car. If you're a flute player, it's small stuff, but they still have a music stand and a music stand light and music and water bottle. And so sometimes it's, for a lot of people, it's 2 trips to the car to grab everything because it's just a bit too much to carry it all in one shot. I myself have a few extra things, and I make at least 2 trips to the car.
Thank you. Well, I think this is a good time for council discussion. I guess I would like to ask a couple questions. So, Parab, and we have the memo. Thank you. They're talking about 20 cars. Maybe you already mentioned this, but how many cars historically have you been able to park in the park?
We've been known to park over 30 cars, maybe 32, 33 cars on the dirt. behind the pavilion. Way back before the Waldo Canyon fire, before some work was done back there, putting some more boulders and things, there was more parking available, and everyone used to park back there. So somewhere around 2013, I'm thinking, there was some work done back there, putting some boulders in a walkway in, and that took away some parking. So that's when we started parking other places at the end of the park, closer to Tubby's turnaround. That was available for a short time. It was just an open area. And then the last bunch of years, we've had some spots blocked off on Park Avenue, typically about 10 spots. We have 45 people in the band. And so one person drives the trailer, that leaves 44. There might be one or two people that carpool, but not typically. And so somehow we have to fit everybody back there. I suggested to the group that they all buy little Mini Coopers, and we could fit more cars back there, but that didn't go.
And also one other thing, and Roy, I think you alluded to this, but at some point we'll have the Hiawatha Gardens open. And my thinking is that, maybe council's thinking as well, is that might be a new venue for the Little London Winds. I mean, a little larger area, more parking, more accessible. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was just talking to Shelley earlier, but they definitely like the idea eventually if Hiawatha opens up and they have a pavilion they do need covered, then they would be very interested in as a site, and that's down the road a little bit. So that's something that we definitely are looking at, including if we do vans or shuttles at some point that maybe we can get folks to Soda Springs easier. We don't have that in place right now to make it convenient or usable to a degree. I think that will be efficient for, guaranteeing time to get there and everything else. But eventually other venues may.
What we're looking for is a roof and a floor. We don't need a stage. At Soda Springs Park, we don't really quite fit on the stage. We're so tight up there that when we came back from COVID, we still wanted to separate a little bit. So we set up on the concrete floor in front of the stage and determined we liked it better. Gives us a bit more elbow room. So just a flat floor, and the roof is very important because, the threat of rain or real rain happens almost every Monday. And if we had to be out in the open air, we would probably have to cancel at least half the concerts because you have to make a decision sometime in the afternoon. And last August, our last concert, a People's Choice concert, where people vote for what they want to hear, we canceled that concert because of the threat of this big storm, because we got caught in a storm the previous year and a lot of people were upset. And of course, we canceled the concert this year and the skies cleared up and the sun came out and everything was fine and we're all disappointed. So the roof is very important for us and the audience, of course. When we did have rain, the people sitting outside the pavilion just squeezed inside and made it work. So that's been very, very important, and it's worked out great for all these years. But I have a question, because I don't know the background on the 20 spaces, but would it be a consideration to not limit it to 20 spaces, just continue doing what we've been doing for the last 29 years, especially considering it's short term, and we're happy to move to Hiawatha Gardens when it's ready?
Thank you. I guess at that point, let's have some discussion, council. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming. How many concerts do you have scheduled for the 2025 season?
In the summertime, there are 9.
9.
We start the third Monday of June, and we play 9 consecutive Mondays.
Thank you. The 2-page agreement that you have included in our packet under terms and conditions, item 1, parking limit. The event organizer is permitted to use the designated dirt area at Soda Springs Park for parking up to 15 vehicles. And now I've heard 20, I've heard 25, I've heard 30, I've heard 40, I've heard 45. And I've also heard that some of these vehicles have trailers and flatbeds and so on. So I guess the first point I want to make sure that we discuss as a group tonight is this just a sample agreement? In which case that number will be left blank, or are you asking for a specific limit of number? And if so, I'd like to know the actual number of parking spaces you're actually asking for, and how many attendants per how many vehicles are you planning? That's the second item I'd like to discuss tonight. And then lastly, I believe that our public information officer released a statement about phase 2 of the Soda Springs Park plan that I believe now is being delayed until June of 2025. And I'm wondering where these construction vehicles will be staged also in this park. I think it's going to be quite quite an event to even pull this off and make sure that we have a safe park. So those are the questions that I'd like us to mull over tonight before we make any decisions. Thank you.
Okay, so last year is we went with 15 just to try to reduce the number. It really was just kind of a guess to see how it works with a lot attendant and being able to guide vehicles in. We knew initially it was, again, I heard from Megan Weiss, up to 40 cars at times in there. So we decided to just go 15, reduce it, see how it works with an attendant, and it went really well. Initially, we're thinking maybe we try to push it to 20 after talking with Shelley and the fact how they've managed it. I'm honestly 30, 35 wouldn't bother me. I think as long as they follow the rules that we gave them, and so far they showed that last year, not just them, but other groups. We never had that before, and we have never had an accident even before that time without a lot of attendant watching them and guiding them. So I think we've put in place a safety measure. We've shown that it can work. I think there's still more room than 15 cars. And so we're looking at, I think 30 would help, because of also, if we don't put them there, they're going somewhere and driving around neighborhoods parking. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So it's like, okay, we have a space here. It's worked. It's proven for years to be safe. And now we just made it safer. So that's where now I'm open to the 30. I think it's safe. I think if council's more comfortable with the 20 or 25, I'm open to that too. I think anything can help. So hopefully that answers your question. That guidance from council is what I need on the number.
Are these cars parked there for the entirety of the evening? And if so, is the lot attendant, who I'm assuming is provided by the event person, so they're for the duration of the evening? They're not just for loading and unloading and then the vehicle is moved. They're there for the duration of the evening.
Well, once the cars are parked, there's no movement whatsoever. They're actually packed in. We've typically had somebody back there in the dirt area to make sure people park as efficiently as possible, so they don't park someplace where 3 cars could fit. There's only 1 now. So we do that for efficiency purposes, but they're guiding people when they're driving in up the driveway there, the little entranceway. So once the cars are parked, they're all locked up, and then we enjoy the concert. And it's usually somebody usually somebody that's related to a band member, spouse typically.
And my last comment is with regards to the phase 2 park plan. Is there a designated staging area for vehicles and equipment when they're putting in all of that playground stuff that is going to be a different area than this area? And please explain that to me.
Yeah, my understanding, and I'll have Jillian correct me if I'm wrong, but the parking area for that is more towards the west of the park, near the playground, which is opposite the pavilion. And so when they were starting to do the project, they had, I believe, about 4 spots reserved there. But there might be some, vehicles, of course, would be pulled out in that afternoon. And my guess, it would be possible to have them clean up and pull out during concerts or whatever. But there may be maybe a parking place or 2 that have to still be saved for some equipment that's not moved on a daily basis, like the vehicles. So I think we can work around that part, but it will take a couple spots there probably. And what I saw with the last, when they were working on it, they had about, I believe, 4 to 5 spaces reserved by the playground. Jillian, is that about right? Okay, 8 at the most. But we would look at the concert, and luckily Jillian works with Megan with with all these concerts and everything. So she would know what's happening and be able to see how we adjust things to make them work and safe as possible. It will be more challenging though, of course.
Right. And from our perspective, we're talking about 9 nights total for the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy?
So Ray, to clarify, we're looking for basically a policy for parking behind the pavilion for the 25 season and the 26 season.
We could always come back in 26 if it looks like we're still struggling with this, but right now we're trying to get through the 25 season.
Okay, and when does the park construction on, I believe it's phase 3 behind the pavilion, when does that start?
Okay, so the park would start their construction in 2026 sometime once we get funding.
Be ideal if it happened after Hiawatha was ready.
So practically, it seems like the only one we can truly address at this point is the 25 season.
It's if we can get through this season, we also have a year then to really think about other alternatives too, and maybe we come up with some things.
Okay.
It's been difficult. It's a difficult area for sure.
So now I would just say I've been to many of your concerts and I thoroughly enjoy them.
Thank you.
I've also played there in a community band and have hauled multiple instrument stands, et cetera. However, that being said, I'm not an advocate of having more than 20 cars back there. But the rest of, but I would negotiate with the city if I were you and I believe that it had been offered for reserved spots on Park Avenue for some of those parking spots.
We could do that. And again, we're just trying to figure out that we don't want to necessarily push 40 cars back into the parking train, that goes around looking for things. So, that's the problem. We're taking away space. If 200, 300 people come to the concert, they're going to look for parking. And we just don't have the perfect system with Hiawatha set up and everything else to transport yet. And so it's tough right now. And we're trying to not create more problems for another 20 cars at least now looking for parking.
What he said, we already have 10 spots allocated to us on Park Avenue. And if we take another 10, 15 spots, it takes away from the audience when there's perfectly usable dirt available. So.
Right. I found it very interesting how people managed to find parking in Manitou one way or another when they went to attend an event. So I'm less concerned about the audience finding a way to get to your concerts.
Well, if I may, I know of some people that have come to the concerts and left because they couldn't find parking. I know my direct neighbors told me that they came, they drove around, they couldn't find parking. And we know some people who stopped coming to the concerts because they've had issues a few times. So those are just a few of the ones I know. But
right. And that's the cost of doing business in Manitou. I mean,
yeah.
Unfortunately, if you didn't perform at Soda Springs Park this summer, where would you perform?
We would find a new home in Colorado Springs, most likely. Well, someplace with a roof, could be Bear Creek Park. It could be a church.
Okay. Well, I would certainly hate to lose you guys because as I said, I know how enjoyable your concerts are, but parking is a problem here, and
right, got to make the best of it.
We're not going to be able to fix that to everyone's satisfaction, unfortunately. So anyway, bottom line is I would be supportive of 20 to maintain for the season 20 spots in accordance with Parab's recommendation, and that there be an attendant parking them, which I've also done, by the way. So.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Oh, I enjoy your concerts too. I can hear them from my kitchen window and
I was
I
just talking
always,
about
I
it.
always
People
do.
told
You
me they can
can't
hear
miss
from their
the
porches.
concert because it comes right through the window, whether you've got the window open or not.
Mm.
And I enjoy it as well.
Thank you.
Listen, if we, and I understand what Roy is saying about, oh, we don't want to take away any more parking off Park Avenue because maybe we'll have fewer people attending your concerts if they can't park, right there. Which I don't agree with that. I'm more inclined to think like Nancy, that people find a way. You can park at Hiawatha and take a little bus. You can park in Hiawatha and walk. Hopefully by next summer, we'll have the two, electric vehicles that we're supposed to use for backup for things. But so aside from worrying about whether, maybe you won't have any audience if they can't park right at the park. So aside from that, what if there were designated loading zones where people could unload their stuff and then, go park, and they had the entirety of Park Avenue, all of those spaces reserved just for the musicians? Would that satisfy your need until we can get you over to the new Hiawatha Pavilion with the floor and the roof and all those things you said you'd like?
So reserving 44, 45 spaces on
Mhm.
Park Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work.
That would work. Okay.
Yeah, Park Avenue is right there. If somebody has to make multiple trips to their car, that's perfectly doable. I mean, it's right there.
You have to do that anyway.
We do that anyway.
I mean, you can't put all 45 people into the lot.
Right.
And
But-
that's why you take a half an hour or 45 minutes to set up, because you might have to go back to your car and get your music or something.
Right. Yeah, assuming the people.
Attendant who's supposedly supervising for safety purposes, is it true that's an employee? Is that someone from your group or is that a city employee? Because that person is going to have some liability now that we understand that they're responsible for keeping kids from getting hit. So I'm curious, just as an attorney, I can't help but wonder, like, whoa, lot attendant liability. Do you guys have insurance?
We do have insurance.
And do you have the kind of insurance that would cover if a kid gets hit by a car that's packing up because the lot attendant was busy tying his shoe with something and he didn't pay attention that 1 second?
Well, that's never even come close to happening, but we have, I believe it's $3 million liability policy.
And it covers all kinds of things, including car accidents?
I don't know.
Because otherwise, it seems to me that the individual, the person who owns the vehicle who backs up into a child, obviously their insurance company will cover something, but that's only a minimum of $25,000. That's nothing. So I'd be more interested in, it'd be more likely that the lot attendant who's supposed to be supervising the safety is the one that would get sued. And I was wondering if there is adequate insurance, but it sounds like there is. Thank you. Those are my only questions.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I have some pictures from last summer and I'll send them down because we talk about how great this has all been working. And it hasn't been working all that great, okay? If the mayor wants to indulge these pictures on the screen, we can put them up there. But basically, cars have been parked clear over alongside the pavilion, alongside the creek. Sometimes it is, if you were a handicapped person, there are many times that I could barely even get by these cars, okay? And I'm pretty skinny. I realize that we had an old PIO guy who was a little bit skinnier than me, okay? But I wouldn't have even wanted to try to get into his trousers, but so these pictures are from last summer. And there were cars parked all over the place. So the other thing I'd like to just talk about too is that, and I agree with Julie Wolf about there are 45 parking places on Park Avenue, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of people who come to these events every summer. And if we were only waiting for people to use only the parking adjacent to Soda Springs Park, we would maybe have 10 people attend these events because of the number of vendors and other types of people who come. On the last page, I want to show, I want to show kind of the parking configuration that oftentimes is happening. And I guess I used one of the park cars there on Park Avenue. And then I just copied and pasted and put it in there. And you can see that basically at most, there's maybe 20 cars that are parked. Okay, in there. Okay, I have no idea how in the world we would fantasize that there would be 30 cars or 40 cars or anything like that in that area. So if we take this diagram here, okay, that just suddenly showed up this evening, okay, and you just draw that polygon on top of this, okay, I show there's 10 cars. Okay, in the yellow zone. I don't know how in the world you would ever get 20 in there. You couldn't even open the doors, okay, with the boulders and things like that are in there. So I just beg to differ that I don't think it's been working, okay?
But it has
The
been.
event organizers have not been self-policing. These pictures show it. They document it. These cars are.
Can I
all
get
over the
dates
parking
of
lot.
these pictures? Can I get dates?
Huh?
Can I get dates?
They were June and September. Are these pictures here?
Because we didn't start the program till late last year. So it wasn't really in effect until after that. And that was part of the problem.
Okay, so what date was your thing started?
I have to go back and check that, but it was after we had issues of parking there. And I believe it was September, October, and then sometime in October,
but-
I thought
well,
we started, but I'd have to check.
I'm sorry, but these
And I
pictures don't
understand that.
look,
And hold on here. I understand that basically a lot of things changed around September and there was almost no use of that area at all for parking. Okay, which was a lot safer for people. Okay, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic that goes through that area. Okay, there are kids that play around back there. Okay, you never know who's going to be back there. My point is these pictures from June and September, okay, show cars parked back there. Okay. So
if I may,
I'm all about, hold on. I'm all about, Roy, I think you gave a wonderful presentation and a wonderful set of apologetics. My point is, I live downtown only just literally just minutes, okay? And I come down to almost every one of these events. And I'm always looking for safety, especially for the children that play down in that park, okay? There are many, many, many people who live in the downtown area who have kids who live in apartments and who do not have their own yards and they play in that park. Okay. And they do not check the schedule to see when we have our parking, okay, going on. So what I'm showing here is this, is that this is kind of what's been going on. If something magical happened in September where we weren't having a lot of cars back there, and that was a huge improvement. I did not notice that any of these events had any problems from going on. And I am like Nancy Fortune and other people have already spoken that I have no problem. To me, people live here, not cars. And people they do find parking spaces in Manitou. And we are working really hard as a council to provide even 100 and some more parking spaces. Okay. All right. We are striving like I have never seen any other city with micro mobility and trying to get people around town so that you can basically park and you can go shopping and go all these different places and you don't have to park right in front. So what I understand from your testimony, sir, is that if we allocated 45 parking spaces on Park Avenue, probably the people who have the big giant instruments would probably appreciate parking closer to the pavilion. And probably the flutes could probably park down by Tubby's turnaround, right? Okay, and that would work for you.
yes,
Correct? Thank you.
If I may, John, when were these pictures taken?
These were taken in June and in
Okay.
September.
Right. Do you have specific dates of the week?
Okay, I can bring that up. Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, because when I look at this on page 3 here, I'm looking at an SUV on the back. It says Hanson Honey Tree Farm. If you look at the picture underneath it, if you look to the right, I mean, you'll see a big truck there. I mean, it's a box truck that doesn't look like any kind of truck I've ever seen down at the Little London Winds. This looks to me
Okay,
like these
okay,
pictures
these-
were taken
it
during
doesn't-
the farmer's
Yeah.
market,
Okay.
not
these-
during the Little London
Okay,
Winds
Okay,
performance.
these aren't little London Wind things. These are pictures I took of different events. Okay, they are not, okay, these are not little London Wind event pictures. Okay, these are pictures that I took that show all the different, okay, cars scattered all over the park, okay, at different events. So, okay, I want to clear that up. Okay, thank you.
Good. Well, I guess my thought is here is that using these photos and then driving specifically at the Little London's Winds, I don't think that's quite fair, John. Admittedly, you look at these and yeah, this is there's some concerns here, but I mean, I've lived in the neighborhood like you longer than the Little London Winds has been playing. I've walked by the concerts. I've been to the concerts. I've seen the, vehicles packed in there, but I don't ever remember being there any kind of problem. The musicians were able to
Yeah,
manage it. People were able to come to the park and enjoy it. I mean, the park's there for people.
as I mentioned, we do pack it in like sardines, but we do it in a very organized manner.
And it's been working. It seems to me like I would be in favor of letting them pack in like sardines for the next couple of years with the hope then that we could, they would be willing to move down to the Hiawatha Gardens
We-
where we'd.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hiawatha sounds wonderful. We'd be very willing to move down there, call it a permanent home as soon as it's ready. Sounds like it's a bigger floor, better parking, new bathrooms. So it's a win-win for everybody, and especially the audience, because there's more parking down there. And as soon as the audience, and not just our groups, for other groups that play as well, as soon as they discover Hiawatha Gardens, they'll make that their home. That'll be fine.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate that parking at Soda Springs is an issue. I think we're trying to move towards a different approach to it. But I think the situation we have here is we've got an organization that's proved itself for almost 3 decades that it can handle it, that the public likes it. And I'm told by people in Colorado Springs that they come over here for the concerts. Then they usually complain about the parking, that they can't get close enough, and sometimes they have gone home. And I think really this is an amenity. It's free to the city, I believe. Is that correct?
Sorry?
It's your service is free to the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, and it's a long tradition and people enjoy it
Yes, we don't charge.
and we're using people get to use the parks and they have a concert, and that's the use of the park, I think, is important, and that's
Yeah.
an appropriate.
And I should add that the Little London Winds are all volunteers. We don't get paid to play, but we have a lot of accomplished musicians in there. Military service band members, Air Force Band, Army Band, Navy Band, a lot of music teachers. Our current director, I believe, was the music teacher or music director at Manitou Springs High a gazillion years ago for a short time. But we have a lot of band directors, and they have a lot of connections. So it's a lot of great musicians, a lot of retired professionals, and we have a good time. We play for fun. We play because we enjoy it. And like I tell the audience, we play because nobody's told us to stop yet.
Great, thank you. Well, I guess my 2 cents would be that I trust city staff and the musicians to work together to, use the dirt lot, optimize it as much as you can, and then get parking on Park Avenue and live with that for a year or 2, and then have you move down to Hiawatha Gardens. That'd be my take. Natalie?
I'm willing to support Parab's recommendation of the 20 spots. I believe they also take safety seriously. And I do want to mention that my long-term vision, though, is for a car-free Soda Springs Park. But I recognize that we're working on that, and I believe those 20 spots can help us get there. And I'm willing to compromise at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, I don't think you've weighed in yet. But what does that mean? I mean, can you be a little more specific?
I'm fine keeping it the way it is and allowing them to continue to park back there.
Okay, thank you. I guess Michelle and I are in the same boat. Are you aligned with me, or are you aligned with the 20 slots, or? Because I would let them pack in as many as they
Yeah,
safely
pack them
can.
in because otherwise they're having to pay for parking over there?
And offer them free parking. It's not necessary.
Well, after 6 o'clock, it's going to be free anyway. So,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right.
so and they
Okay.
do play at 7. So, yeah.
But if they take parking out on the street, then that does not provide parking for those who come to see Little Wins.
Okay.
Is the first half hour of parking free still?
Yes.
Or so really people can start parking at 5:30 at no cost,
Right.
which is plenty early.
Right. Judith, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Mayor. What I hear you saying is you need parking spaces, that you are not opposed to parking on the street should those, so it's not about parking in Soda Springs Park. It's about having access to parking near where you will be unloading and loading, right? So that's what I'm hearing you say.
Correct.
So if you are asking for 20 spots and no more than 20, of course, who's going to be around the count, right? Whether it's 20 or 45. You would not be opposed to 20 spots being blocked off on Park Avenue, and that would be adequate if you were asking for 20 spots on the dirt lot.
Maybe 24, but yes, that around that
Somewhere
number.
between 20 and 25 spots.
Right.
So here, I want you to stay and I want you to perform here. At the end of the day, though, I believe that parks are parks. I believe that parks are parks, not parking lots. And just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen. And I would feel horrible sitting in this seat if something happened on my watch. I believe that cars belong on streets. I believe that cars belong in parking spaces of streets and in parking lots. And if you need for us to consider for 9 evenings, 25 spots, that's what I advocate. I am opposed to the cars being parked on, because you know, it's like everything. It's once you open Pandora's box, if some other event wants to come in 2025 and say, well, you know, Little London Wins, they get 25 spots on that. We also want an agreement where our event, we can park there too. So it's one of those things where I think that we need to be fair, equitable, and most of all, safe. So I would be very much in favor of 24 spaces on Park Avenue for the 9 evenings in 2025 and no parking in Soda Springs Park proper, especially because we've got construction going on, which is another safety issue. Thank you.
Well, they understand it will still 20 spots on the dirt behind the pavilion and 24 on Park Avenue.
No, I'm talking,
Is
if
that-
you need 20 you're asking for 20 spots in your agreement. So instead of having the 20 spots,
Then we need 44 spots.
okay, how many total spots do you need?
We have
And
45 musicians,
Okay,
45, and one of them is be driving the trailer and they will be backing in on and parking the trailer next to the pavilion as they've been doing for 29 years to unload the percussion. So the remaining musicians are 44. So
this
what
is
I
why we
heard
have 7
earlier,
people, because by the end of the evening, we're going to get right down to what it is you actually really need, right?
Yeah.
So
can I, maybe I can summarize. I think you were saying 20 spots behind the pavilion and then 24 spots on Park. That's what I heard.
it was my understanding that Counselor Fortune and Mayor Pro Tem Johnson agreed on 20 total spots. Is that what you agreed to?
On the dirt, in the
On the
In
dirt. That's what I'm
on
talking
the
So
about.
dirt.
if we're only going to agree for 20 spots on the dirt, my initial thought was, well, why don't we just have 20 spots on the street? But now I'm hearing you say that if you park on the street, you need twice as many spots as if you're parking on the dirt. So please, I mean, how many total spots do you need for your concert, whether you're on the dirt or parking in the street?
So can I
What's the
answer?
number?
Let me answer that. I think, and if I'm wrong, you tell me, but basically there's at least 44 parking spaces needed total. And we could do all 44, I guess. I have to count how many we have on park. I'm not sure. 45. Thank you, sir. So it would take all but one. Definitely with the construction, we would lose some there possibly. So we would still have a few missing. It would take all that row. Or the thought is, I think with the dirt lot is we do 20 in the dirt lot and 14 on park. And that would give us, 24 on park. I have to count too, 44. So 20 in the dirt lot, 24 on park. No, on park,
I thought you said we already have certain spots on park that we've allowed the Little London musicians to park in. Did I not hear that? You said,
I don't think they've had a concert. When was their last concert?
didn't you
we've
tell
had-
at the beginning, there was like, we already have like 14 spots on park that we've been reserving. Did I not hear that?
We've had 10 spots on Park Avenue for the
10.
last couple of years.
Okay, so for the last couple of years, we've reserved 10 spots for you on the street.
Correct.
No problem with those being reserved.
Right. But in addition to that, we had 30-something cars on the
Right.
dirt.
So if you're not allowed, so if you currently in the past have enjoyed 10 guaranteed spots and all of the rest of your 34 musicians try to cram into the space behind the pavilion.
That's right.
So really you would want 40, you need parking for 44 people, 44 individual cars. No one's
Plus a
carpooling.
trailer.
44 free spots rather than the 10 we've been doing. We'd increase it to 44. Okay. See, I think it looks junky and trashy as heck. I mean, to me, it looks like white trash to see these, cars all like crammed in there behind the park. And what are you supposed to do if you're in a wheelchair? Like, Jesus, it just looks like junk to me. It just looks really, how do I say it? Very low class. Okay. I would much prefer to see cars on the street. And if we're already reserving 10 for you, I don't see the big deal of reserving additional so that we can keep the park looking nice. One of the problems I have with trying to increase tourism in Manitou and talking about all this economic development, there are little inexpensive things we can do other than like investing in all these consultants. We can do things like making the park not look so junky. We're spending all this money to beautify it, make it pretty, and we're still going to have all these cars and trailers and stuff parked there. I just think I don't know, that's just not how the neighborhood I was raised in didn't do that kind of thing. It just looked nice. So I also think there is sort of that aesthetic element here, It's not just how many cars can we cram in, yay cars, the hell with the handicapped people who maybe have to go all the way around because the cars are in the way. Why can't we make it look nice? I don't, anyway, I don't like the idea of having any cars back there. I think it's a necessary liability. The fact, if we were to use that same argument, Roy, no one's got hit by a car yet on Manitou Avenue, so we don't need to have all those parking, all those crosswalks and the lights flashing and all that stuff because, hey, no one's got hit by a car yet, so let's just leave it that way for a few more years. That is not the approach that we've taken on this council. Nancy Fortune is the one who always says, safety first. Safety first. I'm all about fire and health and safety. Well, where are we on safety here? We're putting cars in a park that don't need to be there. It just makes no sense to me. I don't understand why it's so compelling that it's fine with the orchestra for them to park their vehicles around the park on the street. But the mayor and some of us feel like, oh God, no, don't do that to them. Don't make them park on the street. You think there's going to be plenty of people who still attend this thing, even if we eliminate some of the spots on the park. Most of the people who go there aren't parking right on Park Avenue. So I just don't, I think we should at least do an experiment. Maybe we can say that for the first 4 concerts of 2025, we're going to reserve all those spots on the street for your musicians. And then we want you to give us feedback after the 4th one and let us know, are you happy with it? Are they, and is it fine? Is it working out? Or are you suddenly having no one show up at the concert? Because if they can't park right there, they're not going to go. I don't anticipate that will happen, but we can at least do this as a pilot project to try to clean things up and make it look nice and not like such a little junky, low-class city.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something, Judith?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish my train of thought so that council is clear where I stand on this issue. So what I hear you saying, Shelley, may I call you Shelley?
Certainly.
Is you need 44 spots total. You need-
44 plus a spot for the trailer.
You need 45 spots. So see, I have trouble doing this math and pinning people down to an answer, because what I hear you saying is in the past, you had 15 spots in the dirt and another 10 reserved. Well, that's only 35. So where have the other people been parking?
No, we've always had 30 something on the dirt,
You've always had that.
always.
So this
always.
agreement really doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. It's totally meaningless because it says 15
Well, for-
vehicles.
For 29
I'm
years,
just
we
asking. I mean, I just want you to tell me what you need and what the truth is, because if we have given you, if we have signed an agreement with you in the past for X amount of cars, 15, 20, then what I hear you saying is you must be parking more cars than the agreement. Is that what has been happening?
No, last year, council asked us to start to remove the cars off of that parking
Right.
area.
Right.
And it was hard to do that at the end of the year because we already had groups coming. Not this group. I think they were done by that time. But we had other groups that parked back there too. It was used. It was used for all groups. So we came up with the plan. We told council that we're going to do an agreement. It was announced, I can't remember to council here or by email, that we were going to do an agreement to finish out the year. And then in January, the idea was this parking goes away. With that, we've had discussions with groups and they're struggling with that because of how it used to be. And we don't have a real good connection to our other parking areas and trams or ways to get people there. And I do respect everyone's thoughts on parking. I mean, for 6 years, I've studied it. Cruising's a real thing. And if we push cars that are parking in a space, they cruise and they look for parking. So my goal has always been, even if it's only 10 or 20 cars, how do we get them parked once and stop? But if we're taking away spots now that we had, because we're not ready for those spots, because we're not, we are telling those cars to park elsewhere. Because if London Wind's going to take all of Park, those people are going to cruise around looking for parking. And cruising's a problem because that's where the pollution comes into play. And does it still happen? Of course, but we're now adding another 20 cars or whatever cruising around looking for parking that used to be able to park there. So we're trying to find a temporary solution. That's all. And I appreciate everyone's input. I think it's very interesting discussion and makes us think about things. And I totally understand the visual aspect of it. I do. We're trying to get through a year and trying to make it work. And my goal is always, how do I not push more cars out in the street to go in circles? So that's what
Mayor,
we're
would
looking
you
at. But
allow me one more question?
One more and then I've got a comment.
Thank you. Is this the largest event where this is the largest number of cars we need to accommodate for one particular event? Is this the biggest one
I don't have that number. I do think it's one of the bigger ones.
in Soda Springs Park is
Correct. I do think it's one of the larger ones. Some of them only park maybe, I think a food truck I heard sometimes is there for an event or some kind of, and then maybe where they have supplies, they have to take out beer things for the beer fest or something. So, and then a few cars for the event organizers. I do think this is probably the larger one.
I think there used to be some other larger bands, maybe not quite as big as ours, but close to, but they no longer play in Soda Springs Park. I think we're the only ones left.
So just to answer your question, Mayor, on where I stand on this, I am opposed to cars parking in the park for safety reasons, for aesthetics, for all of the things we've already talked about. I would rather for the 9 sessions, while we do other things in Manitou to possibly provide another venue for you that would work, that we allow the parking spaces to be taken off Park Avenue. And we get creative about how we're going to get people to Soda Springs Park to listen to this wonderful music. Thank you.
Judith, just to clarify, you'd let them have parking spaces on Park Avenue. Would that be the whole, their entire need, 44, for instance, or
Yes,
44? Okay,
if that's what they need for
okay,
9 evenings. Yes.
okay. Council, what I was thinking, if maybe the way to approach this would be 2 separate issues. I think there was some confusion over as to the total number they mentioned. All I think in the very beginning tonight, Shelley had indicated they needed about 44 spaces, but we could, we can go around and decide how we feel on the 20 slots on the dirt. And then we could talk about 24 on Park Avenue now. And Judith, I know you'd do the whole thing, but I don't know if that's of council interest. Somebody else has got a different idea. Yeah,
No, it just
Julie?
occurs to me that, I mean, I understand the desire to break things up, but they kind of go together. So like, for example, some people might feel like, oh, I'm willing to remove the cars from the park only if I'm assured that the musicians will be able to put their vehicles on the street right next to the park. So if we have to separate them, then you might be voting to vote no on the street parking reservation, and you vote no on the putting the vehicles in the park, then you're screwed. So it's a little problematic maybe to separate them. I don't want to make life too complicated, but
And I'm not trying to, I was trying to maybe divide and conquer, but I mean, okay, so I think Nancy and Julie, you two are okay with 20 slots on the dirt. Okay,
Mayor,
yes, I'm sorry. Hang
who
on.
talking
doesn't
to-
want any slots on the park?
talking
Julie
to
just wants
Shelley,
people.
these are the 2 options that would work for us if it helps. Either we do 20 behind the pavilion and 24 on Park, or we just do all on Park. So if we can maybe just get clarification on those 2, we'd be very happy today. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good way to state it, Roy. Okay, Nancy?
I would, as I initially stated, I'm for 20 on behind the pavilion. And yeah, I'm not crazy about 24 on Park, but fine. And I hope that my band, when we play in July, get the same courtesy actually, because we have at least as many players because we come with 2 bands. Secondly, I would submit, or my guess would be that safety is not a concern, as much of a concern as has been implied. I don't know where wheelchairs are back there. I've never seen a wheelchair. I don't know why a wheelchair would be back there in the dirt anyway.
I don't see why anyone with a wheelchair would even want to come to that park. It's too dangerous. You can't even walk through the.
So I don't
Yeah.
understand your
So we haven't
concern.
had any wheelchair people there, so therefore don't bother with them.
But my thing is that in terms of safety, it is done, the parking is done so slowly in that dirt lot. And there are people, I mean, you're taking way more care than actually I see people taking on Park Avenue. So I don't think that safety is as big an issue here as it could be. And thirdly, I am absolutely averse to, once the park is redone, and if that's in 2026, then our original plan was only to have a truck back there. That's it, no more parking. And I don't want to see any more parking once it's fixed up, when we do the renovations back there. But for this summer, I am for 20 in the dirt and whatever is needed on Park Avenue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judith, you're all on Park Avenue, I believe. Is that still correct? Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Natalie?
And, I'm still comfortable with the hybrid option, but obviously if they all end up on Park Avenue, that works perfectly fine for me too. I mean,
Okay.
I honestly don't care, so maybe I do.
So, okay, Natalie, then I guess you'd be okay with
I'm comfortable with either option.
20 behind and 24 on Park or
Correct.
44 on Park.
If all of them end up on Park, then we just move forward a little faster than I anticipated, which is fine.
Okay, okay, great. John?
I'm in favor of any groups that need to use Soda Springs Park, that we cordon off as many parking spaces on Park Avenue as they need. I've gone on record numerous times that I do not agree that any cars ought to be parked in that dirt area. I think that's an adequate area. There are merchants and whatnot that need to access those trash cans. Okay. All right. I think that's an excellent area for a big truck to be staged to basically unload big bulky equipment and stuff like that. And in fact, in our permanent park plan, we have exactly that in the master plan, that you'd be able to pull a large vehicle back there and get unloaded.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of continuing that. So simply speaking, I think we ought to cordon off as many spaces as any group needs on Park Avenue. I do not believe that people are going to be just trolling back there. There are tons of people who are coming on Park Avenue who don't even know that concert's happening and notice it happening when they hear the music playing and whatnot. Okay, so I don't think there's any induced issues with us cordoning off the parking spaces on Park Avenue for all of the events that would use that park. I think that ought to be our policy. Thank you.
Okay.
May I verify that when the one car backs in the small trailer we have next to the pavilion, they can leave that there for the remainder of the concert? That they don't have to go find a spot for a car and a trailer in Manitou? Was they going to reload that right after the concert?
That's kind of a separate thing here. Let's finish what we're
Okay.
up to here. Okay. Okay, so John, you want everybody on Park Avenue. Okay, Michelle?
I want everybody on Park Avenue too.
Julie?
I want everyone on Park Avenue. If it turns out that there's some unanticipated nightmare that occurs as a result of everyone on Park Avenue, we can find out about it and make changes accordingly. But to me, that sounds like a step in the right direction, is to keep all of the event performers on the street.
Okay, so I would, my preference would be to park 20 cars behind on the behind the pavilion and only take 24 slots on Park Avenue. Well, this is interesting. So we have councilors Chandler, Shada, Weatherholt, and Wolf are in favor of putting everybody on Park Avenue. That's a majority. Natalie is ambivalent. Nancy and I would be willing to use some of the dirt back there. So I guess the direction from council is to take all the slots that Little London Winds needs, take those off of Park Avenue. Now, I guess then there's the question of what about the trailer? I would be okay with them pulling the trailer in behind the pavilion, so that would, the trailer could be on the dirt. That's my take. Let's start over on this side. Julie?
I'm okay with it, but I really would like, I don't know, there's no one to enforce this, but if we're going to do that, we really should have a designated lot attendant as part of the event contract that says that the performers are responsible for monitoring that, especially with the electric cars. You know how quiet they are. You don't even know they're moving. Sometimes I forget to turn my electric car off because I can't hear it. So yeah, I'd like there to be a lot attendant just to make sure it's safe, but that would be fine.
Okay, you're with the trailer, subject to having somebody a spotter. Okay.
I'm
Michelle?
fine with the trailer in the dirt lot.
Okay, John? Okay, great.
Fine with the trailer and the dirt lot.
Nancy? Nancy, okay. All right, so you can, one trailer, you can pull the trailer in behind there, have a spotter, if that's
The trailer driver thanks you.
okay. Roy?
Yeah, so I have one more question. Currently, the spots behind the lot, the dirt lot, are free for the event. The on-street is a price. Are we going to waive the cost for the on-street parking?
Roy, the concerts are at 7
If they're
o'clock.
reserving, yeah, but if they're reserving parking spaces, there's in our current program, if we have to reserve them, there's a price to reserve them. Otherwise, it's all on your own to get them, and they want to reserve them. So I need to know if that's going to be then not, we will still reserve them for them, but there's not going to be a price. Is that okay? Okay.
Waiver.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with Nancy?
What time would the cones have to go up? How many hours are we talking about? That before, typically before, in order, because there's going to be cars there all day long.
Yeah.
5:30 would be the best time to make sure it's clear. We have people starting to show up,
Yeah,
musicians starting to show up
I'm
before
asking
6.
Roy because they got to be cleared
sorry.
out.
Yeah, well, I mean, we put them up, now we go 72 hours in advance just to warn people of the date and time.
Okay,
And then about an hour before events, they're out there trying to make sure cars are out.
okay, so the cost is really minimal.
It is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess an observation that I've had is when we put those cones out, people see the cones and then they just, as they're driving by, they just assume that the space is blocked off. So they're out there like the day before, and you walk by and you say, well, this doesn't take effect until tomorrow, but people don't get out and look at that. They just assume that the space is reserved. So then
That's a good point.
lose the use of the space.
Can put a big notice about that, telling everybody, don't let those
Okay, Julie.
cones dissuade you from parking there. It's only for the Monday night, whatever. We can have that be part of our public information.
So, but to your point too, Mayor, I think, now that you said that, I believe we went from like 72 hours to 24 hours. So we've reduced that reason. So not that people understand it's not blocked off, because you're right. They see a cone. If they don't go up and read what it says, there's a chance they drive by thinking it's blocked. At the same time, some people don't, they move the cones and they just park there and think it's their spot. So.
And in the last few years, sometimes when I show up, I get there first. The cones are on the sidewalk.
Yes.
So they're not actually blocking the space. And people park there anyway because they don't stop to read the little sign on this cone. So
Yeah.
when I get there, I take the cones and put them out into the street to actually block the space. The musicians know to move it. But so there have been a number of times where the cones are not quite as effective as they could be.
And that's just the risk. It's just what happens. I mean, it seems to work okay, but.
Okay. Well, council, I think we've gone through this pretty thoroughly.
Okay.
We beat this horse to death. Shelley, does that sound like you guys can live with this?
Yes. Thank you all
Okay.
for your time tonight
Okay.
and consideration. Bottom line is, we don't care exactly where we park as long as we can park and it's around the pavilion there. Whether it's on the street or not doesn't matter. Of course, if we could park on the dirt from a selfish perspective, we'd give more spaces to the audience. But understanding the parking situation in Manitou, you have to make some compromises. So we can do this. Hopefully Hiawatha Gardens will be done sooner than later, and we can move over there and we can forget about this discussion.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll look forward to your next concert season.
We have a concert April 13th,
What?
Trinity Church of the Nazarene in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
It's an indoor concert.
Oh, all right. Okay, great. Council, we have one other discussion item here tonight. I'd suggest we take a 10-minute break and then come back to it. Does that sound okay? So 20 after. Hi, can we go ahead and get started, please? Okay, our next item of business is a discussion. It's we're going to hear about our urban tree canopy and the assessment done by our city staff. So Jillian, you have the floor.
All right. Good evening, City Council. My name is Jillian Rossi. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Manitou Springs, and I'm joined this evening by...
My name is Josh Rady. I'm the Senior GIS Tech with the city.
And this evening, we are presenting results from the urban tree canopy assessment conducted at near the end of 2024. Oh, will we have our slideshow up? There we go. Next slide, please. So a brief background on this assessment, just to refresh everyone's memory. On February 6th, 2024, our city arborist presented the tree inventory presentation to City Council. And that included our streetscapes and parks within the city of Manitou Springs. After that presentation, we were asked to compile a tree canopy assessment. So on the presentation this evening, I did include a couple of definitions because the terms are not interchangeable. And this is something that I learned and I definitely know now. So the tree inventory, it's essentially a snapshot of the species of tree and the number of tree we have on the ground right now. A tree canopy assessment shows the area that those trees canopies cover. So the inventory showed us the species and how many we had. The assessment is showing us the percentage that those canopies cover. And I do want to point out the tree inventory was our first city project that we used an upgraded version of the ArcGIS Field Maps application and formally transitioned from our 20-year-old Trimble devices. And this is important because it allows, the new software allows us to gather data more quickly as opposed to our old technology. Just thought that was interesting. Next slide, please. So a few findings from the tree inventory study that was presented last year. Ultimately, the trees in Manitou Springs that were included in the scope of the study are in good condition. 72% are in good condition. We had 15% in excellent condition, and those are going to include some of our newer and younger trees. And the rest were in fair condition, and then just a few in poor, or I think looks like we had one dead tree in that inventory. We had our coniferous versus deciduous trees graph also. Most of the trees in the inventory, and again, those were streetscapes and parks, are deciduous trees. 85% versus our 15% coniferous. So deciduous trees are leafy trees, are trees that lose their leaves in the fall. And those are actually excellent trees to increase tree canopy cover because they literally cover more ground with their shade. And they also provide more habitat for wildlife and other increased benefits. Not that we don't love our cone-bearing trees, but as far as tree canopy goes, deciduous trees are typically the best choice. And the inventory also provided a breakdown of the deciduous trees included in the scope of the project. And that's important because a healthy canopy or a healthy tree inventory is a tree inventory that is diverse. And so that's what we're aiming for when we did the findings from the inventory, and also that will reflect in the findings from our tree canopy assessment. Next slide, please. The conditions, deficiencies, and future plans based on the inventory. I wanted to include this again just to remind us what we did get from the inventory and how it compares to our assessment findings. But current conditions, the city's parks and streetscapes are on the right track. We found a good diversity of species, a good diversity of age within our tree canopy with the trees that were included in there. And also the condition of the trees. Deficiencies in the inventory included the scope of the inventory. It did not include trees on private property, trees throughout our riparian corridor, which flows all the way through Manitou Springs, or any other parts of the city outside of those parks and downtown area. The future plans that we compiled from that inventory are continuing to increase our species diversity. In diversity, we build strength. Tailoring our planting plans to the landscape as a whole, not just what is shown in the inventory, and planting for the future, factoring in how old some of our trees in Manitou Springs are. Trees don't live forever, and we need to plant for the future, and also help mitigate risks from pests. So the more diverse our canopy cover is, the less we'll be at risk. And I don't want to jinx it, but there is a bug called the emerald ash borer in Colorado. And the more diverse our canopy is, the less likely we are to suffer if we do get that pest to come into Manitou Springs. For example, if we had too many ash trees in Manitou as opposed to a diverse canopy. Next slide, please. And I am going to transition to Josh to present our overview and data from the Urban Tree Canopy Assessment. So take it away, Josh.
Thank you, Jillian. As she said, I will be taking it from here with the Urban Tree Canopy Assessment overview. The purpose of this project was to assess the percentage of tree canopy cover over the city of Manitou Springs for the year of 2020, and to use captured data as a baseline for future assessments and planting plans. The assessment boundaries were limited to the city limits of Manitou Springs, or 2,015 acres, or 3.15 square miles. For frame of reference, as I move into key findings, according to the nonprofit American Forest, the ideal urban canopy cover in Colorado is 24%. Now moving into key findings, we had 41% tree canopy cover in city parks, 11% tree canopy cover in the commercial core zone, which stretches from along Manitou Ave from Old Man's Trail to Ruxton Roundabout. There was 16% tree canopy cover in the URA and 19% canopy cover in the West Manitou zoned area from Ruxton Roundabout to Serpentine Roundabout. Next slide, please. Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay, Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to clarify, is this with respect to the entire city? So with the URA, are you looking at private property as well as the city-owned properties?
Yes, ma'am.
So the whole assessment looked at all the acreage in town, including all the private property?
So we didn't look too far into a lot of the area up on the peripheral. So as I move into the next slide, I'll be talking about the aerials I secured from the El Paso County Public Records. They were available at no cost. However, in moving through this project, I did run into a couple of issues, whereas up on the hillside, it drops to a foot resolution. And the AI model used in this assessment is unable, it recommends a 3-inch resolution. So that 12-inch resolution in the peripheral of the city isn't adequate enough to have a good measure. And it's one of the things we're looking to resolve in 2024s, because I'm hoping to purchase some from an actual vendor instead of procuring them for free from the county.
Well, all that was really over my head. But that's fine. But I just want to know, so these percentages include some private property, such as in the URA, but not all private property, just sort of random?
So it includes all private property within the studies area.
Within the study area?
So like the URA, it includes all private property within the URA. But I didn't look at like private property such as that up like towards Red Mountain because of the loss of the resolution.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so the 16.7% of the URA tree canopy refers then to all of the private properties that are on there with all the little cottages and all the villages, and it's 16.7% of that, not just Manitou Ave and the sidewalk, right?
Correct.
You're looking at all the private properties along Manitou Ave when you refer to the URA zone?
Yes, ma'am. As few slides down, you'll see a good photo of all this, and it'll have
Oh,
a map
okay.
and you'll
Those
be able
will
to see
I
all of
shouldn't have
this.
asked you now. Sorry. Okay.
Good. John, okay, you'll wait. Okay, all right. Go ahead, please.
So project methodology, this project was carried out using the ArcGIS Pro software, utilizing the 2020 El Paso County's aerials. It was processed utilizing the detect objects using deep learning package function within ArcGIS, which essentially I'm plugging in an AI model and running it on a photograph, and it's using pattern recognition to detect trees. So rather than me having to go through and hand trace 40,000 plus trees, the machine was able to do it for me. From this, so I ran it under 6 different variations of this model. Essentially, I went in and edited about 6 lines of code between the 6 different variations. And once they had all run, each tile was run 6 times, the results of which were all compiled into a mosaic, which then became the 2020 tree canopy overview layer, which is showcased in the next slide, if you don't mind. Thank you. So this is the 2020 urban tree canopy overview layer. This was everything the AI model was able to detect utilizing those aerials I procured from the county. As you can see, there are areas north of town, west of town, out in the peripheral where, due to that loss of resolution, we didn't have a great detection. And that's why most of this project will be focused on the downtown Manitou proper, essentially.
Excuse me, Mr. Shada, you have a question?
Okay, so I was a little astonished about kind of the tree canopy coverage in the URA. But the URA is a pretty big district, and now that this slide here has come up, I just do want to make sort of kind of a public comment. I'm very, very familiar with the URA boundaries in this particular kind of tree canopy that's down there. I spent a lot of time looking at aerial maps and whatnot, and all that red that you have kind of dense colored on there, right? That's like 100% canopy, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Basically, that's all public property or state property or school district property. Okay. Almost none of that, except that there's a huge, great tree canopy coverage in that trailer park. Okay. All right. So that piece of private property is heavily wooded and whatnot. But I guess I just want to go on record that, we're really behind the curve in terms of on the tree canopy on the commercial district in the URA. Okay, in that area. And you can see on there that is basically all white, even though you didn't draw any streets or anything like that on there. I think if you would overlay that on there. So
in just a couple of slides, we're going to get into a nice zoomed in view of the URA.
Right.
So if you just give it a couple of slides, we're going to get to that. If you would please move to the next slide. So we're going to start off with the commercial core zone. This is that zoning districts. I pulled this that polygon directly from the zoning map. It runs everywhere from basically Hiawatha Gardens, the east side of that, all the way out to Tubby's Turnaround. There is 11% canopy cover in the commercial core zone, which would be 7 of 65 acres. Next slide, please. Next, we have the West Manitou Zone, where 19% canopy cover, or 4 of 24 acres. Next up, we have the URA. So this is where that really zoomed in. We have 16% canopy cover, or 14 acres of 87. As you can see here, it is very dense in the Fields Park and right there along the creek. But especially along the south side of Manitou, we don't have many trees. Next slide, please. We'll be moving into city parks now. I'm going to start off with Shriver at 55%. This is our highest percent canopy cover park by a very slim margin, as you see Fields next to it at 55.77. If you want to go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Next up, we have the 7-minute spring, which is 35% canopy cover. We have Mansions Park at 31 2/3%, and Memorial at 54.5. Oh, sorry, 52.5. I'm a little dyslexic. Next up, we have Maple Willie at 24% canopy cover. This is our smallest park here in Manitou. Still keeping it strong. We have Bill Bowers at 50, just under 50.5%. Next up, we have the Library Park, and this is one of those that we'll see a good difference between this one and the 2024 version. But in 2020, we had 37, just over 37.5%. Yes, sir.
John, go ahead.
Can we go in and fix this? Because this is from data that is not on the ground right now. There are no trees back in the back part of that park. Okay, there is a building back there and a patio. Is there a way we can go in and update this so that it is not basically a snapshot of what happened before the construction happened?
Well, yes, that will be included on the 2024 assessment. The aerials we used for this assessment are from 2020. So what we did was establish a baseline.
Okay, so this is a baseline. Okay.
Correct.
So could you speak to that? Are we going to do this every other year or every year? What's going on with that?
We'd like to do it every other year and acquire aerials and compare every few years. I think other municipalities have a set amount of time in between their tree canopy assessments. So Manitou, we would need to determine how often we want to do these, but what we were aiming at for the Parks Department was every other year completing a tree canopy assessment using updated aerials.
Okay, so what's the cost of doing the AI system in these aerials and whatnot? Do you know?
So essentially, I only spent $700 on this whole project.
That's really great. This is
Thank
really
you.
great data. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And just a caveat, we would want to include enhanced aerials for the next assessment that have that much higher resolution. And that we'll be able to capture the entire city as opposed to these segmented zones. And that would cost more than the $700. I just want to put that out there.
Still significantly cheaper than a.
I guess what I'm suggesting we do is so that we have better baseline information, especially in the URA, okay, and for Fields Park. I guess what I would hope we would do is that we would take the parcel information that is state property that's all along Fields Park, okay, and goes back to the Dillon, and that we would include that as public space, okay? Because I think that is, the state's never going to use that, okay, along there. And in my opinion, that was one of my main motivators for us acquiring the Dillon, was that we then had this side, or shall we say Manitou Avenue side, access to that property. So that's that parcel that is all along the creek there. And then I would hope that we would include the Dillon in this as well, so that we would have a good public assessment baseline. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, before we lose this baseline stuff, can we do a really good baseline so that in 2 years, when I don't want to have to bring this up again and go, oh, so that we're comparing apples and apples, is what my suggestion is that we would include that state parcel in the Dillon, which is our public ownership, okay, which is, our main thing that we can control is this councils of properties that we own, and are we being really good stewards of the tree canopy of that? And then obviously, to help the tree canopy happen in private property, that's stuff that we have to kind of incentivize or educate and do stuff like that, maybe do a little bit of legislation and whatnot to try and encourage that to kind of happen as well. So I just wanted just wanted to remark because we acquired that Dillon property, and as a part of that as well, okay, there is that state piece there that's right behind us, and it goes almost all the way down to Becker's. Okay. And, you know, I know that Denise hates us acquiring property and putting our name on it. And she's over here laughing. Okay. So that's just a little inside joke between me and her. But my point is that I hope that we would include that in the baseline so that when we look at this again, okay, that we assess how well we did with the Dillon, development in terms of tree line canopy. Did we plant stuff and stuff like that in the areas that maybe we had to take some trees out? So that's just my only comment about that area, because I think that's the big area where the city is going to have a big footprint, you know what I mean, in the next few years. Thank you.
So just for the next assessment, you'd like to see one of these studied areas just for the Dillon?
Oh, what I'm saying is that what I was hoping is that we would, for this baseline, that we'd include those parcels, okay? Because I think those are going to give us a good baseline for the next one. Otherwise, I think it's going to be hard to compare if we keep changing the boundaries. Okay, so I just was asking, how hard is that to do?
It would not be hard, but could we go back 3 slides? Because I believe we have the area included that you're talking about. To the URA slide, a few more. If you pause there, this does show the Dillon parcel.
Well, yeah, it does. But my comment is that when we're evaluating it for fields, I guess I was hoping we would redefine that to be city public property in that area. See what I mean? That we would include the school district's property. Okay, because, we work pretty closely with them in terms of stuff like that. That state property that's across the creek in the Dillon, that we would redefine or maybe come up with another zone. Maybe if we want to keep Fields Park, but
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because to me, to have this kind of coverage down in that area, okay, I think part of a tree assessment is that make sure that we're sustaining this, you know what I mean? And that we're nurturing these zones and whatnot, and we're not losing ground on them and whatnot. And I just think that is an excellent habitat in that area. So thank you very much. As well as that new parcel that we acquired over there. You know what I'm talking about at Becker's and
0 Becker's Lane?
yeah.
Absolutely.
That
Yep.
one there. Include that parcel as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I believe we're on the Soda Springs slide. Back one. Thank you. So we're going to wrap up with Soda Springs Park. There is 38.7% canopy cover in Soda Springs Park, or 0.79 of 2 acres. This image does show Wheeler and Cheyenne Spring. However, I just want to let you guys know these numbers are only related to Soda Springs Park itself.
All right. Thanks for sharing the map data, Josh. So a few recommendations after the tree canopy assessment was conducted. We need to continue planting trees, and that's the short of the summary. But how do we do this? By launching a ground campaign to promote planting in neighborhoods and commercial areas such as the URA that are lacking in tree canopy cover. We can do this through continued city-sponsored programs, such as our tree voucher program, where residents get a $100 voucher to plant a tree on their property through the city. Promoting and educating on fire-wise planting. So ensuring that whatever planting is happening is also planting, keeping fire mitigation in mind. So partnering with our fire department to ensure that we're providing residents the proper information they need to plant trees in locations that aren't going to cause issues later in terms of fire-wise or fire mitigation. conducting the 2024 tree canopy assessment using enhanced software such as those enhanced aerials that we've been talking about that will provide higher resolution photographs of Manitou Springs and will make it much easier for our model to detect, is this a tree? Is this a house with a green roof? Is this a bush? It'll be able to identify down to very specific locations for that. It'll also identify impervious surfaces, which are areas where we can't plant trees. So concrete, buildings, in the middle of the creek. Water and potential planting locations are also areas that the enhanced software will allow us to map out. And then comparing that 2024 assessment to the 2024 aerials that you saw tonight with that information.
Can you tell me about this enhanced software? So we don't have access to that right now. That's what you think is coming down the pike, is the ability to get this analysis about impervious surfaces and roofs and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying is coming?
Yes. So
But we don't have access to that now.
it depends. I guess, Josh, I'll let you field this.
Essentially, I just have to spend some money on in a higher quality aerials. That's the main thing. We looked at when I was originally sourcing materials for all of this before finally landing on the free ones from the El Paso County Public Records. We had quoted things out from different organizations such as Near Maps. There were organizations that, oh yeah, we'll come out and fly it for you. Well, it'll be several grand. So it's the main difficulty is just trying to figure out how to do this as high quality while also getting the best bang for our buck.
So I have another question. So and I know we've all been, glued to the TV about all the California fires and whatnot, and that whole kind of chaparral environment, okay, that they have out there. We're not all that different from that. I mean, we're not a chaparral, but I continue to get phone calls and concerned about kind of the amount of dead wood and the amount of dead material that is in and around the city. And I'm wondering about, given that this is going to be in our own GIS system, right, in terms of where all this is identified, can we start to kind of take some of that information where we're seeing that there is large, we cleaned up that area there. What was that road there? The Brook Street right away and whatnot, and clean that all up and whatnot in there. That should show up in the next study, right? Because the data that we have now is before that cleanup happened, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we should see. So
well-
I guess what I'm asking is, are these AI systems able to, in our particular environment, help us see where some of this dead material is that, we need to kind of clean up, and we need to encourage private property owners to kind of be franchised as well as the city as well. Just tell me about do you have any information on that, on that kind of data and that kind of information?
So one of the difficulties with this one would be the size of the dead material. Because even about the best aerials you're going to find are in about 2-inch per pixel resolution.
Okay, so if the AI and the aerials can't pick this up, how about us being able to assess some of this stuff on the ground and then put that in as a layer? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Okay.
actually a lot more, that's more towards like the tree inventory we did previously, where I basically programmed a fields map for Matthew and Mandy, our previous arborists, to go out and identify dead, fair, et cetera, as well as all the species composition and all that stuff. I'm happy to share any of that stuff if you have.
Well, I just think that would be good, because I am really tickled with the fact that the city has our yearly neighborhood, pick up the stuff. Some of the people who know in my neighborhood knows how much I put out in the last year, okay, which was a pretty huge amount. Okay. It wasn't all mine. I mean, I have some neighbors that live behind me that, I kind of help them kind of pick stuff up and drag it out, to the front. But to me, I really think I think those programs are so successful. Okay. I get lots of phone calls of people were so excited about how our employees handled that, how helpful they were, and they love that kind of partnership kind of thing. And it just seems like to me that this is the price we pay for having a good tree canopy. Some of this material does die. Okay. And if we're not picking it up in our environment, it just basically sits there for years and years and years and dries out and becomes a bigger endangerment. I was just trying to figure out from a technology standpoint how much ground stuff that we could plug in if the AI system couldn't see it from the air. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if we did get like a drone, that would be something that could be more feasible. Because then you could fly the canopy at a very close, and then have the model basically review the footage and then identify them from there.
Mm.
Currently, with the more satellite height,
Right.
that 2-inch resolution, I don't think you'd be able to identify like a dead branch.
Right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be Natalie, please.
So I'm assuming this information will be available on our website. Is that where we're going to be sharing
Yeah,
this?
it'll be on our forestry webpage.
Okay.
We'll share this with Cass, our public information officer, and get it posted. I did want to include, along with being able to use technology to identify deadwood, this is another excellent opportunity for us to partner with the fire department on public education. If folks don't know that some of the scrub oak around their property could be a fire issue, they might not know to maybe cut some of it back and give it to us for the chipping program. So we're looking into partnering with the fire department also on education.
And I did have one additional. I'm wondering if this is going to be, again, on our website, and if we are going to be pushing it out, if it is worth putting something in parentheses on the particular library park piece, something around like this data was taken before just because that particular item I think is going to be misleading, as John suggested. And I do know more data is coming, but I think that might help if we're going to be really pushing it out to just have just some little asterisk or something. So, well, I mean, whatever.
I do agree with the big asterisks. We will make sure it's in the title of the document.
Absolutely.
Because that's something we tried to emphasize through this presentation, and even then it got lost.
I was
So
saying,
we
I
wanna-
knew that, but you're right. But I just want to make sure, because I think, like you said, there's a lot we can do with this. We can promote a lot of different opportunities in the community. And so I don't want to, if we can just take care of it really quickly
Right.
before it goes out, I think that might be helpful.
Thank you.
Now, let's let some other people give a chance, and we'll get back to you, John. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations. I'm so pleased with this presentation as a baseline. As Denise is my witness, I think I've been asking for this, and the Climate Action Work Group has been clamoring for this for 5 years now. And so I really appreciate this baseline. This is so good. You should seriously consider a CML conference presentation after you have another round of data, because I think you'd have a packed house for something like this. I think it's the caliber of this. So that said, I'm really thrilled about getting some increased technology and doing a citywide assessment. I want us to think about tying in a little bit more information. I'm really impressed that you used American forests as one of your data points. I have a great article for tree equity and climate change. How many urban trees do we need to plant? Very good article. I'll send it to anybody who wants it. But the language is starting to change. And I love that we're having these things in our vernacular now. Like there is now an industry nationwide definition of tree inequity. right? It's also used synonymously with shade inequity or tree canopy inequity. But the definition is the inequitable distribution of trees and tree canopy and their associated benefits across the metropolitan area. And this really feeds into what Councilor Shada says. And it really is about being inclusive with this tree canopy data. In other words, this impacts economic development and tourism and all the things that we do. But one of the things I did a deep dive into today is, what does that mean? What does tree inequity mean? And I looked at a number of sources, and most of the sources I looked at an average score of, if you are less than 20, if you're sitting at less than 20, you have a blighted neighborhood. And tree inequity is now being used as a criteria now to define a blighted neighborhood. And so you can see the urban renewal, overhead is a perfect example, because the reason it even gets the score it gets is because of the park and I believe that would be the mobile home park there too. But if you just take the urban renewal core and you do you apply that, it's going to get a low score. And this is where grant money is available, right? So it's just, I mean, my head is exploding. I'm so happy. I don't know if you've heard of MT 2030. It stands for Mountain Towns 2030. And it is a very large and growing group of mountain towns, including Aspen, Breckenridge, Telluride. I mean, I was invited to their conference this year. I was unable to go, but I'm hoping to go. And they are getting together and these initiatives that they're presenting in order to enhance and grow tree canopy is great. So, I mean, I can't say enough great things about where this can go. With regards to recommendations, I would just have a few. I think it's really important for us to start making public service announcements to our residents and business owners. We've got to start deep watering our trees. It's too warm. On these warm stretches, our trees need water. They're not getting snow. So we have to make sure that we're caring for the trees that we have. So it's really good to remind people, when it's 50s, 60s out for a stretch of time, you've got to do a deep water on your trees. I love promoting education, and I think Firewise Planting is a great source, but I also would really like to invite you to welcome the Climate Action Work Group into these conversations. We were the ones that started that tree voucher program, and then it was moved to your tree committee. And because this data states that there's 4 major reasons why we're losing trees, and we're losing them rapidly. And, of course, California is a great example, unfortunately. We're losing 1 tree for every 2 established trees nationwide. The first reason is natural disasters. The second one is difficulty in growing trees in urban areas. The third is tree removal because of development, which we've seen locally lately. But number 4 is the improper planting practices. And that's where I think you've got just a cache of local experts, some of whom are sitting behind you, who can really help in that expert healthy tree planting, especially in education. And then lastly, I do have one question. Does PARAB have a tree committee? I have heard various responses to that question I've heard there's not a tree committee, there is. Tell me the status of the tree committee and what it is that the tree committee does currently.
Yes, PARB is the tree advisory board or tree committee. We use the terms interchangeably. Each month at PARB meetings, we had our city arborist Matthew compile a report and present to them at the start of the meeting in their tree advisory board hat. And what he did was he gave a summary of what the forestry division had been up to the previous month, and also a list of the trees that had recently had tree risk assessments done. and listed the status of those trees. And some of them were, we could leave them up and see if they decline. Some were extremely declined and slated for removal. But all of those trees were brought to the tree advisory board. And the trees we were able to offer decisions on, like the ones where we could leave them for a while, that they were declining, we would ask, would you prefer that this tree be removed or stay up? And it's always stay up, to see how it progresses.
Is that information part of the weekly report when it comes in once a month? I would imagine it's a monthly report.
Yeah, the
Because I would
report,
like to see that information when it comes in. Do you have tree experts on your tree committee other than your arborists? Who are they PARAB members? Or I mean, do you have other people come in? I mean, who comprises your tree committee?
the tree committee are all the members of PARAB.
Oh,
We
I
don't
see.
have
You-
anyone else coming
I
in.
see.
Yep.
Well, you might want to, I did ask a few PARAB members if they had a tree committee, and I had at least one person say that they didn't. So you didn't. So you might want to go have a conversation about that and clarify. But otherwise, I think this is phenomenal. And I think that I cannot wait to see the rest of the data. And I do agree with Counselor Shada that if we could take some of these areas where we go, uh-oh, we're in trouble here, where grant money might be available, the urban core, urban renewal core, to split those out. I think that would be great data to have in the future. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments, Julie?
I need to be reminded, is this tree committee, isn't this mandatory as, in order for us to be qualified as a pollinator city or as a good people city, or there's some like reason we have this committee? It's a mandate for something. What is it?
It's Tree City USA. As part of our annual requirements, we need to have a tree advisory board or tree committee of some sort.
It's my understanding that PARAB is not happy that they were required to be the tree committee because they don't know shit about trees. Excuse me about the shit word. They don't know about trees. They don't have tree experts, and they feel that they're being asked to perform a task and just kind of bullshit their way through it because they are not tree experts. They could maybe try to do their best to summarize what the city arborist tells them in his report once a month and just sort of, paraphrase or copycat what he says. But it's my understanding that PARAB is very unhappy and that this is not the appropriate, they don't have expertise on this. They're just kind of pretending. And so I just thought I would say that in the open because people, and I'm sure you've heard this, Julian, come on. I mean, everybody, people who know, I'm not saying anything that's new, okay, to people who are involved with this, but it doesn't make sense for us to have a pretend tree committee of people who don't know about trees. Just wanted that to go on record. And if the tree committee, federal something decides to, unanoint us with that tree designation, so be it. But we don't really have a tree committee. The people have no idea about trees. It's not their expertise. And it was supposedly forced on them that this is what they're supposed to do. So maybe we could think about who else could be a tree committee. Maybe the city arborist can be the committee of one. I don't know.
Thank you. Natalie?
So as liaison to PARAB, I watch them take their role very seriously. And if you'd like, if council would like, I could certainly ask them if they don't want or appreciate that role. But I do see them actively working every month when I'm with them. And so I just don't want you
I'm just
to
repeating what Danu told me, okay?
Yeah, but I'm just
All right,
saying
I'll
that like,
just say it. She just said to me, this is ridiculous. Nancy Fortune insisted we do this, so we're doing it, but we don't know what we're doing and we just pretend. We don't know crap about trees. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to bring this up and see if we can solve the problem by having the tree committee either non-exist or appoint some committee that knows something about trees so that it's not just a farcical pretend kind of thing. That's my understanding. And
Okay, well,
if that's your
probably not be
understanding,
happy with
if
me
you'd
that I
like me to
announced this
clarify
publicly, but
and have the
that's the
board speak
story.
on their behalf, I could certainly do that.
okay. Okay, John.
So I guess the other overlay I would like to see, and I'm assuming you have the parcel overlay, that's how you're doing this. To me, I think the lungs of our community is all the open space, okay, that the city and that is owned by, let's say, the Forest Service, okay, and other entities. And to me, I guess I'd like to see that as an overlay, as a baseline, okay, so that we really understand kind of the lungs of the community, because so I guess that I think would be a really key overlay to have, is all of the publicly owned parcels, okay, and what that looks like as one of these overlays as a baseline, okay. The second thing I just want to ask you about is what you anticipate being on the website. Will that be a live thing, or will that be these static things? Will that be a link to, let's say, I mean, I've been kind of tracking how California's been looking at kind of the Palisade fires and whatnot. And, they have some, I don't remember what it is, some ARC or one of those kind of big, mapping companies, and you can practically zoom right on down to a particular parcel. And what I was excited about that was that if we can geocode where we have, let's say, dead wood and trees and stuff like that, so that people at an individual level can kind of really zoom in and see for their particular parcels that they own, maybe that can aid us in our education effort. That's what I was just asking. So what do you think is going to be posted on the website?
So right now, what will be posted is the information shared in the presentation, making it clear that this is a baseline data study from 2020 using 2020 aerials. I think in the future, what goes on the website and how interactive it is, it depends on what software we're using. Again, those resolution of the aerials and what our PIO and our GIS technician, and time. Time spent on the.
Yeah, sorry. So when we were getting into this one, I really I wanted to make the final product all interactive, but just in the time that I had to work on it, and the lack of the good resolution up on the western slope area, as you get into the town's peripheral, due to just inaccuracies in that area, I didn't want to have people all zooming in on that area. So the main point of this one was to focus on Manitou proper. So all of these visual aids will be available on the website. But next year I am hoping to make it a super interactive, a nice scroll all around, explore Manitou tree canopy. I just have to have better aerials. That's just the bottom line.
Okay. I guess I, for one, would be certainly game if there's a budget issue or whatever, to understanding what the financial repercussions of this is, because I think these kind of tools is the stuff we really need to have if we're going to get a real good grip on where this tree canopy is, not only in these zones. Like I said, I think the lungs of our community is a lot of our open space and parks and public stuff. And I think we ought to be using that as a part of the baseline. And I also see this as a key tool to be able to figure out how we can get a grip on some of this dead material and whatnot, and where we need to be active in the community in terms of getting rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise, please.
I just, how many trees have we planted over the last couple of years?
Over the past 5 years, since this study, since 2020, we've planted 312 trees. We planted 98 trees in 2024. So that's the data from our KPIs.
Thank you. I guess a couple comments here. I like data probably as much as most people, but software does not plant trees. Software may be a tool that helps us figure out where our trees are sick and where they need to be replaced and so forth. But putting trees in dirt is what gives us trees. So when I look at slide 14 of the library here, yeah, we've lost trees because we remodeled the library. This spring, hopefully we'll plant, I think we were talking about 12 new trees. So I think it's time for us to focus on actually putting plants in the ground and acting on that. We can continue to document things. That's fine to have an idea of what our trees are, where they are. I mean, what the health of the trees are. I mean, most of us, I think, are probably familiar with with Canyon Avenue, where it meets Lover's Lane and the apothecary shop. If you go behind there, there's a tree that's probably 6 feet in diameter. It looks to me like it's in bad shape. It looks like there's a hole in it and the tree's getting hollow. None of that's on private property. That's not part of this study. But that is, to me, and I've complained several times or asked to have it checked out. And to my knowledge, it's not been checked out. It looks to me like that tree could come down in a storm. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's a situation where we've got a tree. Somebody needs to take care of it, and going and making and refining the software and getting more pixels per whatever square inch or per metric yard per yard or whatever is not actually going to take care of that tree. So let's not get too enamored of the tool. Let's use the tool where it serves us, but let's remember that we have to replace trees. We have to take care of them. We have to get them pruned. A couple of things that I'd like to know, and I think this follows nicely. I think it's slide 17. So there's some great ideas here. Keep up with the tree voucher program. That's a fine thing. Something, last summer, I was contacted by some scouts who were looking for service projects. I think they actually did some fire mitigation, some clearing and whatnot. Yeah, Jillian, you were helpful in that, so thank you. If you could target some places there where we might have some public service days, school kids or scouts looking for projects, I think that would be a good thing for us to do. I think that also builds community. It teaches us stewardship of the land. So I would be looking to you for some examples of where that might happen. Of course, the other thing is just by walking around, we can determine a lot. We can figure out where the problems are. It's what did Yogi Berra say? He says you can observe a lot just by looking. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot simpler than that. And maybe that's the phase we need to do now. I do thank you. I think this was helpful. We can pat ourselves on the back to some extent, but I think now it's time to grab shovels and think about where we can do some planning here this spring. So Arbor Day, maybe that's something we could do if council would be interested in supporting that. I'd also like to know, we had some information there on species of trees. We had the condition of the trees. If there are species that are having problems, then I think that's something we need to address. And again, the arborist's office kind of was taking care of that. I think maybe we're between arborists right now. Anyway, there are hazards that are out there with some of our standing trees, and some of those are on, a lot of those are on private property. So that would be, I think, the next step or a future step that we should get after, and probably in conjunction with the fire department. So those few of my comments. Thanks for the work you've done. I think this nudges the football a little closer to the goalpost, but springtime will be coming. It'll be time to put trees in the ground. So let's think about actually doing that. Nancy and then Judith.
I was just wondering if you plan to put Higginbotham Flats as a park area, and I don't think it's reflected on this one, and I didn't know why not.
What slide are you on?
Thank you. Thanks for your question.
West
Higginbotham Flats does not have a specific slide right now. It is included in the 41% total park coverage. We did not give it its own slide.
While I agree with the mayor that we need to get shovels in the ground, I think that this is one of the most important things that we can do for this city, is to make sure that we practice tree equity. And I strongly support us investing in the types of software that we need, especially because I know, I've read them, there are grant opportunities out there especially for identified blighted areas. And so I just think that this is really exciting. And I know that the residents of Manitou are thrilled that this is happening. And again, I'm happy tonight because I'm really okay with this being a 2020 baseline. I'm so okay with an every other year study. I think I can't say enough good things about it. I think I give you an A+ tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, this is informational. Denise, please.
Mayor, we'll normally do every other year, but we are going to do it next year. So we'll be bringing this to you next year because we'll get much 24. Yeah, we'll have the 24 data. It won't have the 25, but will be the 24 and it will be much more detailed. So after that, then we'll go 26, 28, but we are coming next year to present this probably late fall is what we're thinking, depending on the workload and the schedules.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further comments? No, I guess not. So great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, council, that concludes the two discussion topics we had for tonight. And that takes us to council correspondence. Does anybody have anything? Nancy?
Just, I don't know if folks saw it or not, but Colorado Springs did change their buffer zone for recreational marijuana from a mile to 1,000 feet. So that'll have huge impacts for us.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I've gotten calls and talked to people walking around town who want to know what's going on with the Wichita bathrooms. Why are they closed? When will they open? We've received no information on that, so I was hoping Denise could update us.
I was going to speak to that a little bit. I did meet with two of the Metro people on Friday, my brother and Shimmy. It was not antagonistic, but it was not really a productive meeting either. Their position basically is they're in the parking business. They say they're not in the bathroom business. They're locking the bathrooms. They don't want to maintain them. What they suggested is that the city lease the bathrooms from them at $3,000 a month and provide the maintenance services. And I don't see them changing that position. They're pretty hard over on that.
Okay. And so I asked, as you know, but this is just for the public record, for all you public out there, that I asked to see emails and memos regarding this matter with the Metro Board and the city, and I was told that I'd have to do a core request. Now, the reason I'm asking for that information isn't because I'm a nosy, curious resident. It's because it's my responsibility to oversee what the city is doing, including what the city is doing with its money and what the city is doing with its parking and with its public. So in this case, since the parking lot isn't owned by us, but I understand we gave them just shy of $100,000 to fix the bathrooms with no strings attached, like, here you go, here's the money, happy birthday to you. And if you decide to close the bathroom someday after you fix it up, then so be it. Is that, I'm having trouble believing that that's really what we did, but is that what Denise did? Is she just gave that money away with no strings attached and there's nothing we can do?
I don't know if there's nothing we can do. I think we had a good faith agreement that we were going to bring the bathrooms up to ADA standards. I mean, when you think about it, there are days when we worry about our ADA violations, and we've got multiple ones throughout town, and we know that. And each year we try to whittle down that list of problems, and the enforcement people, the federal government, they understand if we're trying to make progress on that, they're going to show some leniency. So what made sense? Well, a high volume bathroom in a critical part of town. It made sense to do the ADA. So I think that was good judgment. Now,
Good judgment to give the money to somebody else?
Well, it was good judgment to make the bathrooms ADA compliant. Okay, now we had a working
no
relationship.
agreement.
What?
Well, that's what I want to know because I was denied the right to get the information I need. So I want to just ask you about it
Okay,
verbally.
okay.
Was there an agreement about, we'll give you the money in exchange, you have to run these bathrooms for the next 15 years?
I
or-
don't think there was an agreement to that extent.
There was no
I think we more or less
discussion?
volunteered. No, we didn't. I don't think we ever anticipated that they wouldn't have bathrooms. It seems to me that's such an obvious need, particularly in a tourist town where you're, okay, the URA, not the URA, the Metro Board feels they are in the parking business. I would say that the city of Manitou Springs is also in the parking business, but more importantly, we are in the hospitality business. We park people, but we want them to be able to be comfortable, to get around, to be mobile, to find bathrooms, to have a pleasant experience in Manitou. Fundamentally, and this kind of came up when I was talking to my brother in Shemmy, is that Manitou Springs is in the hospitality business. Bathrooms are part of what we do. They are not. They fundamentally believe that they do not need to provide bathrooms. They need customers, but customers' needs are not or something else. So anyway, Julie, let me just say that I am never going to talk to my brother again in the context of the Metro business. I do not want to. If you want to talk to my brother, you're more than welcome to. You're absolutely welcome to. Okay.
Well, I understand.
Okay,
It
go get
sounds
that.
like you're
Okay.
in a difficult position
Okay,
with it
it's-
being a family member.
Well,
I
and-
appreciate
and
that.
there's-
But I'm just blown away that $100,000 or $97,000 of money that we could have used to make the bathroom here outside this building looks better because it looks like heck. It's clean, but it looks like it was maybe designed when I was born. It's so gross and it looks like it would be like a bathroom in a prison. You can't break the mirror because it's non-breakable. It's gross. So anyway, we could use that money for other things, but no, we gave it to this entity with no. I mean, Denise talks to Jeff about legal advice almost every day. There's no legal agreement that says
I
we're
just
gonna
have a
give-
quick, can we?
I'm sorry.
that.
Natalie is the liaison person. Let's let Natalie.
Well, no, but I'm
provide
just
some-
curious. I think we've gone past what you can do with a non-agenda item. I think this has to be.
No, I think you're right. Yeah,
I'm not,
sorry.
it's just
That's a good
it's
point.
not. Did you know what I mean? Well, no, but I mean, I think we,
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's, I think that's.
So we're not going to
well, no,
talk
we should
about
bring
this.
it back.
Oh,
I
then in
just-
that case, I would like to know, then I would like there to be, I'm making a motion right now that at our next meeting, this be on the agenda. I need 4 people to agree, 3 people to agree with me if it'll be on the agenda or not. And then we can put it on the agenda instead of keeping, because I walk down the street and it's like, where am I supposed to go to the bathroom? What's going on with Wichita? What are we supposed to say? Walk all the way down here and go to the crappy bathroom? Maybe we need to start unlocking the door and letting the public use the bathroom in this building until such time as we can at least get a half decent bath. I mean, it's still a hell of a walk to go from downtown to here. I mean, or should we tell everybody just to go into Shimmy's businesses and use their bathrooms? I mean, the fact that we gave away this money with no strings attached completely blows my mind. I mean, and the fact that, oh, well, the money came from a grant. So what? The color of money is irrelevant. Money is money. We could have used it for something that was guaranteed to help the public. And instead we gave it away to your brother. All right. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. And to Shimmy.
Okay,
Uh,
okay, Julie.
Yeah.
Okay, we can put this on a future agenda. You will not attack my family.
I'm
You will not,
just-
and you've had enough.
Really,
You've
I'm
attacked
attacking
Nancy.
you for having
Calm
a
down.
conflict of interest. I'm not attacking the family. You're the one that said you don't want to talk to your brother anymore. And I said, I'm happy to talk to your brother. I'm not criticizing your brother. I'm saying it's a conflict of interest. On one hand, my brother wants $100,000.
We'll
with no
discuss this
strings.
at a future time. We will have a public discussion. We will comply with all the laws. That's what we will do. Enough. Is there any other council correspondence for
Yeah,
this
I
evening?
have a motion on the table to put
This
this on
is a
the
work session.
agenda.
We don't have motions.
Okay, then I'll
Okay?
bring it up next time that I want us
It
to
will
have
not
an
be next
opportunity.
time. It will be a subsequent time. We
Yeah,
need to get
I would like
prepared.
to have this on the agenda. The public deserves to know, what are we going to do about this problem?
Understood. It's not going to get settled tonight. Okay. I have several other things. Okay, I mentioned the Metro Board. Okay. You all got an email from Ken Juray. He had asked to have a resolution for some, well, I'll ask Nancy to expand upon it because this was something I guess the Manny people talked about. He'd asked for a resolution. I don't think it's appropriate for a resolution. If council's interested, we could do it as a proclamation. Nancy, can you explain what Ken
Sure.
was talking about?
The Manny Awards has about 8 categories. I think I can't remember exactly how many. And periodically over the years, they have evolved, they change. Some stay the same, but several have changed. So it was brought to the last Manny. I'm the city council representative currently on the Manny Award committee. And it was brought to the last committee to change one of them. And I can't remember which one they wanted to change. Denise, do you remember? It was the mover and shaker.
Mover and
That's right.
shaker.
I'm sorry, to eliminate the mover and shaker and instead put in that's generosity and kindness. And it's to award people for their generosity, but primarily generosity in terms of kindness. The committee agreed to this change. Ken Juray would like the council to do a resolution on it. I think you all saw that. It was in your email from Ken. I personally support it. I think it is an appropriate resolution. And he would like us, so I guess just if people want it or don't want it to be a resolution is the question.
I guess I don't think it's appropriate to be a resolution. It could be a proclamation.
Or a proclamation. Proclamation, I think would be fine. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Proclamation, okay.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So I said I'd run this past council. Does council have any opinion on this? Okay, Nancy, you support it. Judith, you don't care. John, proclamation. Julie? Okay, we can do a proclamation. Okay, no big deal. It's,
Since we're talking about it, who's on the committee to decide who's the kindest person? Does Ken Juray get to decide that along with what?
Dating you, Julie.
I know, I want to know who's on the committee. It seems like it's always the same people and it seems like a little kind of, cliquish.
well, that's-
Yeah, it
well-
just, I mean, it bothers me. So we have this committee deciding who deserves an award and who elected the committee.
It's
Is it-
not a city-run committee. The city participates on it, but it is run primarily by, there's 8 organizations. There's the Pikes Peak Bulletin, there's the Chamber, city staff. Denise represents city staff. I'm currently representing city council.
School.
The school board is on it, or not the school board, the school staff members on there.
Women's Club.
Women's Club, yeah, and the Community
Kiwanis.
Foundation, Kiwanis is on there. So it's a community, purely a community group made up of various leaders within the community that makes the
So
decisions.
the leaders were self-designated then? Is that the answer?
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank you.
That's my assessment of it. But anyone can nominate. And if you've ever been to a Manny Award, I think that's a very,
I've been to them. I think it's cliquish.
okay, well, and I'm glad John brought this up actually, because I meant to tell you that, or to ask you to please nominate people for it. And there'll be things in the Pikes Peak Bulletin in the near future to outline how the nomination process works. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay, also, council, we talked a little bit about doing a joint section with the planning commission, I believe. We touched on it last week.
Is it possible to look at it?
Well, now, okay, there's a couple things here. There was a planning commission, there was also, we talked about a retreat here, and Michelle, I think maybe, let me talk to the planning commission first. So we've been having a work session on February 11th, and then it'd be the next night, it'd be on Wednesday, is the proposed time to have the joint session with planning commission. That would work for planning commission. several times they've met on Tuesdays on our schedule, so it's probably our turn to meet on their schedule. I'd looked at trying to skip having a work session on the 11th, since if we do that, we'd be meeting on the 12th. There are a couple things that we probably should talk about. Just the Ruxton Avenue reconstruction project and the Black Canyon open space. And we have those two items. It doesn't look like they could be ready, earlier the week before, because we don't have a terribly busy meeting on the 4th. So I want to run that by you. Think about it this week. Can we do a joint session on Wednesday, February the 12th? We would have a meeting the night before, so I realize that's back-to-back meetings. The other thing is we talked a little bit about a retreat, and Michelle, I think that may be what you're referring to, and that would be sponsored by DOLA. The proposal was to start on a Friday at like 2 PM and go to 7, and then come back and do start at 8:30, something like that in the morning on Saturday, and work into the early afternoon. The proposed time was February 21st and 22nd. Both Michelle and Natalie have conflicts on those dates, so I throw that out. If you could all look at your calendars and we could kind of coalesce towards a date, it looked like it would probably be in March then. And this would be kind of a strategic planning meeting and retreat. Let's see, then
I have 2 Saturdays in March that I'm already unavailable.
Okay, do you know what
Just
Saturdays, those are?
Oh geez, I think it's the 2nd and the 3rd. I can get back to you, but
Okay, if you would, yeah, we'll try and find a date. I realize we're all fairly busy, so it's a bit of a challenge. Another item is Kiwanis Club is going to be sponsoring it's going to be a night on wildfire mitigation themes. So this will be a presentation by Lieutenant Mike Willie from the Manitou Springs Fire Department. He'll be talking on fire dangers, wildlands fire danger, and fire mitigation. The public's invited to the Kiwanis meeting that night. That'll be at 7 PM, February the 3rd. So it's several weeks from now. There'll be dessert will be served. It'll be at the Community Congregational Church in the meeting hall behind the church. There's limited parking there next door. But if you want to, it's open to the public. So go ahead and tell your constituents and whatnot that if they want to learn about fire mitigation, that would be a good thing to attend. And then I have some packets for council members. This has to do with the city administrator's evaluation. I was asked to put together a summary, and I'll have that for you here. I'll pass that out. Do we have in just a minute? Do we have anything else?
do we have a date for the goal setting?
No, we don't. Actually, what I was kind of anticipating is the goal setting would be conducted under that DOLA retreat. So, I mean, it would be that, goal
So
setting.
push that out to March or April, maybe?
Well, March, yeah, it's whenever.
It's like she only has that doesn't give the administrator very much time to reach her goals if we let her know what the goals are 4 months into the year.
Well,
Is there a way we can work around that? Or maybe rather than combining it with other things, just do the goal settings. She deserves
yeah, no,
to
I
know what
understand.
goals we're gonna be.
Okay, I understand that, and that's a reasonable point. So next week, we're going to talk about her evaluation. We actually have 4 executive sessions next week. We have the city administrator, we have the COG situation. We're going to hear about the incline, I believe. And Denise, I think I got 3 out of 4.
Match.
Match. Okay, so there's a match funding issue that we need to hear about. So really the public portion of next week's meeting is fairly short, but we will have, I think, fairly involved discussions in the executive sessions. But we could perhaps address the goals at that time. We'll see what council's prerogatives are. Okay.
I would think ideally before March would make sense.
It would make sense trying to get this done, but it's kind of at council's discretion.
John, I am now available on the 21st and 22nd. I realize the 21st still doesn't work for Michelle, but I don't know, could we do the 22nd and 23rd?
The 21st is a definitely no for me, as my 2 coworkers are at a conference.
Yeah. So,
Well,
I'm not available on the 21st either.
okay. So
Somebody else is not available on the 21st? Nancy? Okay.
But I am available on the 22nd.
22nd, okay. Well, then possibly we'll ask Todd Leopold for some input on that. I guess it's not unheard of to try to do this in one day, but it would be a full day. I think Todd also typically gets together with each member of a city council when he does this for a one-on-one session. And this is done well in advance of the meeting day. So this is an opportunity really for each council person just to talk one-on-one with a fairly objective individual who does this, and then all the ideas come together in the meeting, and hopefully it's a productive meeting. Okay, so Denise, if you would reach out to Todd and see what the scheduling might be. And if anybody has any conflicts, if you could let Denise know, Saturdays mainly. Fridays would be good to know, because maybe we'd still try to do the Friday, Saturday approach. Todd he was strongly in favor of trying to do it in 2 days, just because it can be, as you all know, because we've done things like that, it can be taxing. Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll pass out the packets and then we'll be adjourned.
I have a couple.
Well, I'm sorry, Denise.
I
Yeah,
just have a
yeah,
couple.
yeah.
A thought, and this is just a thought, is maybe do a half a day Saturday and a half day Sunday. So you do 22nd and 23rd. It's a thought, so that you don't have it in all one day. So I wanted to put that out. I also wanted to mention on January 22nd, Plan Manitou will be here in an open house, public open house from 6 to 8. So that's January 22nd. And February 7th at 4:30, the library is going to have its grand opening. So it will be open on February 7th at 4:30 is the ceremony. So if everybody could attend, that would be great.
The library's 4:30 to 6:30 right now. Is that what you said? 4:30.
Okay, council, if there's nothing else, we're adjourned.